Hi, I'm Sienna, and I'm 26 years old. Some families play favorites with their children. My husband Max's family was one of those. To be honest, it was actually my mother-in-law Helen who showed favoritism. My husband was a neglected child, while his sister Maggie was the mother's little girl. Frank, his father, was neutral and the only other sane person than Max. When I met his family, his mother and sister immediately gave me bad vibes, being so safe through me, and Max gave it away. It was probably because I was an average girl from a humble background and the fact that Max could never do anything right. Helen and Maggie continuously insulted us. They said, "My God, I can't believe my son convinced someone to date him. I mean, look at him. All this time I thought he would die single. He has nothing to gloat about." Actually, Mum, this girl is pretty average at best. And she's not even rich like my boyfriend. She suits you, bro. Don't disrespect Sienna. She is our guest. You two are behaving like uncivilized people. This is embarrassing. What is embarrassing is my son bringing home a worthless girl. Not that I had any hopes for him. Stop it now. Sienna, Max, I'm sorry you had to hear that. Please don't take it to heart. You two are great people and perfect for each other. I'm happy for you. Max looked down the entire time and didn't say a word. I'd also sat silent because I was dumbfounded. Helen and Maggie quieted down a little but still threw some offending remarks here and there. That's when it all made sense to me. Max did talk to me about being a black sheep. I never believed him because he was not only accomplished, but also a generally sweet person. It was one of the top reasons why I fell in love with him. Anyway, as the days passed, it became clear to me why Maggie and Helen stuck together. They had very similar personalities and had very few friends. I guess that their offending and rude behavior drove people away easily. Throughout the entire relationship, none of them changed their tune towards me. I did talk to Max, and he agreed that it would be wise not to mingle with them too much. About 4 years after we got into a relationship, Max proposed to me. I said yes because there was no way I was leaving this man. So we got engaged and told everyone. Frank was pretty happy for us and congratulated us. However, Maggie and Helen, as usual, had a lot to say. They said, "So you two are settling down now. Good for you. We will see how long you two last. I will bet 1 year after that you will be bored with each other." Yeah, I mean, what do you guys even do all day? I can't imagine spending time with people who are dumb as rocks. It's a shame Maggie isn't getting married first. It would have been such a big deal for us. We would be planning so much. Why did you guys wait a little more and see if your relationship actually lasts? We have been together for 4 years and are now engaged. Obviously, it will last for a long time. We're sure of this. Oh, we will see about that. Postponing the wedding would be a wise choice. You two haven't been together long enough. Besides, no one cares about Max getting married. At least I'm not the one in the long relationship with no ring on my finger. You can give me lectures when you're engaged yourself. At this point, the entire conversation took a weird turn. That comment had Maggie fuming. Even Helen looked shocked and displeased. Maggie said, "How dare you insult me like that? My boyfriend and I are a good match, unlike you two. Besides, we want a big wedding, and not a cheap one like yours." That's right. I'm sure Maggie will be engaged soon. Someone is already looking for rings, am I right, dear? Yes, you are, Mom. Watch out. I might just beat you to the aisle. If my calculations are right, then I'll be the first child to be married. All the attention will be on me. I would love that. If it happens, I pray you get married first. You are the eldest, and it's only fair you get to marry first. Max and I didn't respond any further. Maggie and Helen went on to have an animated discussion between themselves about Maggie's imaginary wedding. We simply talked to Frank and left after a while. Right off the bat, I knew there was no way I would include Helen and Maggie in the wedding planning. I also didn't include them in the bridal party. They did throw a fit, but told me that they didn't want to be there anyway. The wedding planning itself progressed gracefully without any trouble from the two. I was starting to think that they might be mean and won't do anything stupid. However, I was wrong. I had underestimated just how nasty these two could be. It was about 4 months before my wedding when I got a strange call from Helen. Max wasn't home, so it was only me dealing with her. I was dreading picking up the call but knew that I had to. Helen called me and told me to come straight to their house. I was confused because they never wanted to do anything with me. So when they called me, I was skeptical about going alone. However, thinking nothing of it, I went there anyway. When I arrived, Helen and Maggie were patiently waiting for me. As soon as I sat down, Maggie said, "I'm pregnant and engaged, so I'm going to get married soon. You're here because we need to discuss your wedding." Well, my congratulations are in order, but what does it have to do with my wedding? I'm a little confused. Well, she is pregnant and having my first grandchild. Of course, she needs to get married first. I think you should just cancel your wedding so that she can have hers. She's more important anyway. Excuse me. Why the hell would I do that? If she wants to get married, she can do so. Why does she need me to postpone the wedding? Because I don't want you or anyone to steal my thunder. You see, I and my fiancé have chosen your wedding date to be our wedding date. I want everyone's attention on my wedding only. This will be my year, and I can't have you distract everyone, so postpone the wedding. Impossible. That is never gonna happen. You are both delusional. There is no way I am canceling the wedding. You can postpone yours if you have a problem. She needs to be married before she has a child. Don't be so mean. I can't have my daughter stressed out over you and your stupid marriage. Mom, she is intentionally harassing me. Do something before I end up in the hospital from stress. I heard that and promptly left the house. I had heard everything I needed to hear. The freaking demands of these two lunatics were unbelievable. I felt like I was in a drama. On my way home, I never stopped receiving calls from Maggie and Helen. They even sent me some nasty texts, threatening me with many things. When Max came home from the office that night, he looked a little weird. He walked up to me and said, "Sienna, why is Mom telling me that you're being cruel to Maggie? She said Maggie has been bedridden since you did something horrible at the house today." What the hell? This is insane. Those two invited me to the house to ambush me. They wanted us to postpone the wedding to next year. When I said no, they started to say I was intentionally hurting Maggie. What? Why the hell do they want us to postpone the wedding? I guess Maggie is pregnant and wants to get married on the day of our wedding. I have received no explanation as to why she wants our date when there are so many others. Max was pretty confused about the entire thing. He had no freaking idea that Maggie was pregnant or wanted to be married. He immediately called Helen and Maggie and told them to come over. He wanted to get to the bottom of things. When they arrived, Max said, "What is this I'm hearing about Maggie?" "Well, she is pregnant and wants to get married soon. She has chosen your date to get married, so cancel your wedding." First of all, why didn't you tell me before? I had to hear from Sienna that you are pregnant, Maggie. I'm your brother. Why didn't you tell me anything? Because I don't care if you know. Your wedding is a problem for me. That's what I am concerned about. Wow, that is just amazing. Just so you know, there is no way we will cancel. We have put deposits on all vendors. If we cancel, we will lose a lot of money. Sienna's family has already booked flights and hotels. I don't care, Max. You and Sienna are not the priority here. I am the priority since I am pregnant. I don't care if you lose money. You cannot marry on my wedding day. Max, don't be so selfish. You and your wife can have a wedding later. My little girl is going to be a mother. We have to prioritize her now. Besides, you two are having a small wedding anyway. Your reasons to cancel our wedding are ridiculous. There is no way we are listening to you. If Maggie is so hell-bent on having a wedding, she can choose a different date. Mom, do something. Mags, do you want me to stress out and lose a child? Are you too jealous I'm having the first grandchild? Maggie said this and cried very loudly. Helen was trying to comfort her while cursing us out at the same time. Max was getting pretty upset by their demands and accusations. I could tell he was getting uncomfortable, so I decided to unceremoniously kick them out. They left, but not without throwing out empty threats. The next day, family members kept blowing up our phones about the wedding. Maggie and Helen told the extended family that we are cancelling the wedding. We got to know about their plan because many called us to know if everything was okay. When we told them the full truth, they were pretty mad for being lied to. A couple of family members decided to support Maggie and told us to reconsider the wedding. We promptly told them they could choose not to come. We never pressured anyone to attend our wedding and even expected many people not to show up. When calling people didn't work, Maggie and Helen tried to cancel our venue and catering. Thankfully, my mother-in-law had advised us to set passwords, so their plan didn't work. When the venue and catering people informed me about the calls, both I and Max were starting to get very angry. I almost ended up uninviting them from the wedding. However, I didn't because Max didn't want to exclude his family. Max was so used to being treated unfairly that he never stood up for himself. Since Helen and Maggie were harassing him continuously, he was starting to rethink the wedding. I knew I had to be patient with him and show him exactly how manipulative and toxic his family is. Things helped when his father reassured him a little. He said, "Son, Sienna, I'm sorry Helen and Maggie are being so ridiculous." I told them to stop, but they wouldn't listen to me either. "It's okay, Dad. I'm starting to feel guilty for stressing them out. Are we doing the right thing, Dad?" "Of course you are. Don't ever think you are in the wrong. I know Maggie and Helen intentionally set the date to ruin your wedding. Besides, Maggie's boyfriend doesn't even want to get married in a hurry." "So Maggie's boyfriend doesn't want to rush the wedding?" "No, Sienna. In fact, he thinks Maggie is rushing everything. He wants to get financially stable with the baby around and then spend money on a wedding. Maggie and Helen are obviously doing this just to spite you." Max and I were shocked that Maggie and Helen would stoop so low. How can anyone weaponize their unborn child just to spite other people? It blew our minds. It also made me even more firm in my decision to go through with the wedding. However, Maggie and Helen were far from backing down. They became worse and started to harass us non-stop. It got so bad that we had to block their numbers. Besides harassing us, Maggie also tried to copy or upstage our wedding. She booked a different banquet at the same venue and got a bigger food spread for her wedding. Everything was coming out of Frank's and Maggie's fiancé's pockets. Helen also encouraged her to compete with us and build a better wedding. They even went and bought the same wedding dress as me. Honestly, you were done with her. We were being made out to be the bad guys for not prioritizing her pregnancy. Months passed, and slowly we were getting closer to our wedding. A few days before the wedding was to happen, I got a call from Frank. It was about my wedding dress. Before all this chaos started, Helen and Frank offered to store my wedding dress in their wardrobe. My wardrobe was full, and it was difficult for me to store it in my house, so I let them keep it. Frank called me and said, "Sienna, I'm calling to warn you. Helen and Maggie are planning something. I think it's about your wedding dress. You need to come and take it away from our house." "What? How do you know that, Frank? Do you really think they would do this?" "I overheard them talking and laughing about it. Please take your dress, Sienna. I won't forgive myself if something happens to it. Don't worry, Frank. I will come over." I was fuming inside. The mere thought of them messing up my dress brought tears to my eyes. It was a gift from my grandma, who was battling cancer right now, so the dress was extra sentimental for me. I hurried to the house and went up to the closet in their room with Frank's permission. I found my dress sitting inside. Just 2 shelves over was Maggie's dress. At that point, my mind struck a plan. I could hear the click of heels. It was either Helen or Maggie coming, so I quickly switched the dresses and waited. Just as I thought, Helen showed up. She said, "Well, hello there. Shouldn't you be at your house? Or have you finally come here to apologize and cancel the wedding? It's about time." "In your dreams, Helen. I'm actually here to take away my dress. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll take my dress and walk away. This is not your problem anymore." Well, wait a minute. There is something I need to take care of. She walked and snatched the dress out of my hand. Before I could react, she dashed into the closet and locked the door. Then, all I could hear was the swishing sound of scissors running through the fabric. When she unlocked the door, at her feet lay scraps of a wedding dress. This woman actually did rip it apart like toilet paper. She gave me a smug smile while I stood dumbstruck. Helen gleefully hurried off to tell Maggie about her work. At that moment, I snatched my actual dress and dashed for the door. I went to my car, put the dress in the back, and locked the door. When I went back into the house, Maggie and Helen were near the closet. Maggie was on her knees, looking at the dress. Then she gave the loudest wail and started to shake. I immediately began secretly recording with my phone. Helen was confused. She said, "Honey, what is wrong? I destroyed Sienna's wedding dress so that she can't get married on your day. Everything went according to our plan. Why are you crying?" "Mom, what did you do? This is my dress. You destroyed my dress. How could you do this?" "Maggie, this is not your dress. I was careful about it. I saw Sienna leaving with a bag I snatched out of her hand. It was the right one." "My bad, Maggie. I really thought I took my dress. I guess I got confused because we have the same dress. I should have checked the dress labels to see the name." "How dare you?" "Hi, I'm Sienna, and I'm 26 years old. Some families play favorites with their children. My husband Max's family was one of those. To be honest, it was actually my mother-in-law Helen who showed favoritism. My husband was a neglected child, while his sister Maggie was the mother's little girl. Frank, his father, was neutral and the only other sane person than Max. When I met his family, his mother and sister immediately gave me bad vibes, being so safe through me, and Max gave it away. It was probably because I was an average girl from a humble background and the fact that Max could never do anything right. Helen and Maggie continuously insulted us. They said, "My God, I can't believe my son convinced someone to date him. I mean, look at him. All this time I thought he would die single. He has nothing to gloat about." "Actually, Mum, this girl is pretty average at best. And she's not even rich like my boyfriend. She suits you, bro. Don't disrespect Sienna. She is our guest. You two are behaving like uncivilized people. This is embarrassing." "What is embarrassing is my son bringing home a worthless girl. Not that I had any hopes for him." "Stop it now. Sienna, Max, I'm sorry you had to hear that. Please don't take it to heart. You two are great people and perfect for each other. I'm happy for you." Max looked down the entire time and didn't say a word. I'd also sat silent because I was dumbfounded. Helen and Maggie quieted down a little but still threw some offending remarks here and there. That's when it all made sense to me. Max did talk to me about being a black sheep. I never believed him because he was not only accomplished, but also a generally sweet person. It was one of the top reasons why I fell in love with him. Anyway, as the days passed, it became clear to me why Maggie and Helen stuck together. They had very similar personalities and had very few friends. I guess that their offending and rude behavior drove people away easily. Throughout the entire relationship, none of them changed their tune towards me. I did talk to Max, and he agreed that it would be wise not to mingle with them too much. About 4 years after we got into a relationship, Max proposed to me. I said yes because there was no way I was leaving this man, so we got engaged and told everyone. Frank was pretty happy for us and congratulated us. However, Maggie and Helen, as usual, had a lot to say. They said, "So you two are settling down now. Good for you. We will see how long you two last. I will bet 1 year after that you will be bored with each other." Yeah, I mean, what do you guys even do all day? I can't imagine spending time with people who are dumb as rocks. It's a shame Maggie isn't getting married first. It would have been such a big deal for us. We would be planning so much. Why did you guys wait a little more and see if your relationship actually lasts?
Hey friends, I've got a story that's so satisfying, it could be straight out of a movie. You know those moments in life when you feel like you've hit the jackpot of revenge? Well, this is one of those stories. Let me set the stage. My name is Martha. A few months back, my father passed away. It was a tough time for our family, but we pulled together to get through it. Dad had always been a great provider, and he left behind a sizable estate, including the family home, some investments, and a vintage car collection that would make any car enthusiast drool. Now, here's where things take a turn. My older brother, Mark, suddenly became a little too interested in Dad's assets. He'd always been the black sheep of the family, and I should have seen it coming. At the funeral, he couldn't stop talking about how he should get the lion's share because he had kids to support and bills to pay. Classic Mark. I knew something was up when he started getting chummy with Dad's lawyer, Mr. Stevens. They'd have hushed conversations at family gatherings, and it all seemed fishy. I couldn't prove anything, though, until the day of the will reading. The whole family gathered in the lawyer's office, and there was an air of tension you could cut with a knife. Mr. Stevens began to read the will, and as expected, Mark got the lion's share of the estate, including the family home. My heart sank as I thought he'd won. But then Mr. Stevens paused, looked over his glasses, and dropped the bombshell of the century. Dad's will stipulated that Mark would only get those assets if he agreed to one condition. He had to live in the family home for a year, without selling it or renting it out. If he failed to meet this condition, everything would be split equally among the rest of the family, me included. Mark's face turned a shade of crimson I didn't know existed. He spluttered, protested, and even tried to argue, but Mr. Stevens was firm. It was like something out of a legal drama. The rest of us couldn't believe our luck. So there you have it, friends. Mark's greed got the best of him, and now he's stuck in Dad's house, fuming while the rest of us get our fair share. I'm not one to revel in another's misfortune, but this time, karma delivered a dish that was too delicious to resist. Listen to my story to the end, and I'll spill the beans on how Mark's year in the family home is going. It's going to be a wild ride, and I can't wait to share it with you all. I couldn't help but smile as Mr. Stevens calmly closed the will, effectively sealing Mark's fate. It was poetic justice at its finest, and I savored the moment. Mark, on the other hand, was livid. His face turned an alarming shade of red, and he shot daggers at Mr. Stevens. "You can't be serious," Mark shouted, his voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. "This is insane, and it's not what Dad would have wanted." Mr. Stevens, ever the composed lawyer, simply shrugged. "I'm just here to execute your father's wishes, Mark. He outlined this condition in his will, and we must respect it." My other siblings and I exchanged glances, trying to contain our excitement. We had always known Mark's true colors, but this was a whole new level of karma coming back to bite him. As the will reading continued, Mr. Stevens outlined the logistics of the condition. Mark had 30 days to move into the family home, and he couldn't sell it or rented out for a year from the date of occupancy. If he violated these terms, the assets would be divided among the remaining siblings. Mark stormed out of the lawyer's office, vowing to fight this injustice in court. He even threatened to contest the will's validity. But deep down, we knew he was cornered. Dad had been meticulous in his planning, and Mr. Stevens assured us that the will was ironclad. Over the next few weeks, Mark reluctantly moved into the family home, bitterness oozing from every pore. We all helped with the transition, making sure he had no excuses to break the conditions. It was amusing to see him try to negotiate with us for leniency, but we held firm. This was Dad's final wish, and we intended to honor it. Mark's life in the family home was far from comfortable. He resented every moment spent there, surrounded by memories of our childhood and the life he so desperately wanted to escape. I couldn't help but relish in the sweet taste of revenge as I watched him grumble and complain. But there was one thing Mark didn't anticipate: the watchful eyes of the neighborhood. Our parents had lived in that house for decades, and the neighbors were like an extended family. They knew about Dad's will and the conditions he had set for Mark. It didn't take long for them to become Mark's unofficial surveillance team. Every time he tried to bring in a realtor or put the house on the market, someone would anonymously tip us off. Mark's frustration grew with each failed attempt. It was as if the universe was conspiring against him. As the days turned into weeks, Mark's resolve began to waver. He realized that he was trapped in a situation of his own making, and no amount of tantrums or threats could change that. The house, once a symbol of his potential windfall, had become a gilded cage. Next, I will tell you into the comical mishaps and neighborhood interventions that made Mark's year in the family home even more entertaining. Stay tuned, friends. Justice is being served one day at a time. As the weeks turned into months, Mark's predicament in the family home only grew more comical and bizarre, like a real-life sitcom unfolding before our eyes. It was a twisted form of poetic justice that I couldn't help but relish, given what he had put our family through. After all, he had unscrupulously seized our rightful inheritance, and now he was paying the price, quite literally, for his avarice and deceit. One of the most entertaining aspects of this entire ordeal was witnessing Mark's desperate attempts to maintain some semblance of his old life within the confines of the family home. You see, he had been a big shot in his upscale condo, living a life of opulence with a personal chef, a housekeeper, and a gardener to cater to his every whim. However, in the family home, he had to fend for himself, and the results were nothing short of comedic brilliance. I still vividly remember the time he tried to cook a meal for himself. It was an epic disaster of monumental proportions, a culinary catastrophe that would be legendary in family lore. Smoke billowed from the kitchen, and the shrill blaring of the fire alarm reverberated through the house as he desperately tried to salvage his burnt creation. We, the rightful heirs who had suffered his greed, rushed over, fearing for the safety of the house. Instead, we found Mark, frantically waving a dish towel in front of the alarm, his face smudged with soot, and his once impeccable chef's apron now a grimy, scorched rag. "You guys never had to deal with this," he yelled, pointing accusatory fingers at us, as if we were to blame for his culinary calamity. "I can't believe Dad's doing this to me." We couldn't help but chuckle at his culinary misadventure. It was a stark reminder that Mark was completely out of his element in the family home. His lavish lifestyle, which he had flaunted so shamelessly, had left him ill-prepared for the simple realities of everyday living that the rest of us had long since mastered. But the most satisfying moments of all were when the neighborhood, our silent allies, came to our aid. They had taken it upon themselves to enforce Dad's unorthodox conditions, ensuring that Mark didn't dare to try and circumvent them. If he so much as contemplated putting the house on the market, the local real estate agents would be discreetly informed about the will's ironclad stipulations. Once, Mark attempted to rent out a room in the house, perhaps thinking it would bring in some much-needed income. However, little did he know that one of the vigilant neighbors had assumed the role of a potential tenant, engaging in a charade that almost felt like an episode of a hidden camera prank show. At the very last moment, just as Mark was ready to seal the deal, the neighbor revealed the truth, leaving Mark flustered and fuming. His frustration knew no bounds, and we reveled in his exasperation. As the months dragged on, Mark's relationship with the neighborhood soured further. He had unwittingly become the pariah of the community, and people avoided him like the plague. His desperate attempts to garner sympathy from the very people he had once ignored or treated with disdain were met with icy indifference. It was poetic justice at its finest, a symphony of retribution conducted by the universe itself. Mark had grievously underestimated the power of unity within a close-knit neighborhood, and it had become his undoing. The collective strength of the community was a force to be reckoned with, and Mark was discovering this firsthand. But there was still one final twist in this tale of revenge, a revelation that left us all dumbfounded. Next, I will tell you how Mark's tumultuous year in the family home took an unexpected turn, shaking the very foundations of our family's legacy. Stay with me, friends, because this story is about to get even juicier. As the seasons changed and a year passed since Dad's funeral, the drama surrounding Mark's residency in the family home took an unexpected turn. It was as if fate had decided to add one final twist to this bizarre tale of revenge, and it left us all in a state of bewilderment. You see, despite the absurd conditions laid out in Dad's will, Mark had managed to hold on to the family home for an entire year. He had endured the comedic mishaps, the neighborhood's vigilant surveillance, and the utter isolation he had brought upon himself. But he was unyielding in his determination to cling to the house, convinced that he would outlast the stipulations of the will. However, Mark had overlooked a crucial detail, one that would prove to be his downfall. The family home was an aging structure, and its maintenance required not only financial resources, but also a deep understanding of its quirks and idiosyncrasies. Mark possessed neither. At first, we noticed minor issues: a leaky roof, a malfunctioning furnace, and creaking floorboards. Mark, in his arrogance, believed he could simply hire contractors to address these problems. But what he failed to realize was that the house had a peculiar temperament, and it seemed to rebel against his presence. The leaky roof became an incessant drip, defying all attempts at repair. The furnace emitted eerie, discordant noises that kept Mark awake at night, and the creaking floorboards seemed to whisper haunting secrets. It was as if the house itself had joined the neighborhood in its silent revolt against its unwelcome occupant. Mark's frustration grew day by day. He hired a slew of contractors, each more bewildered than the last by the house's bizarre behavior. Plumbers scratched their heads as pipes seemed to change course at will. Electricians were confounded by switches that operated in reverse, and carpenters found themselves entangled in a maze of hidden passages behind walls. His financial resources began to dwindle as he poured money into futile attempts to tame the rebellious house. The neighborhood, well aware of his predicament, watched with a mixture of amusement and satisfaction. It was as if the house itself had become an active participant in our quest for revenge. Mark's sleepless nights and growing desperation were a source of dark amusement for us. He would often emerge from the house in disheveled attire, hair askew, and eyes bloodshot from lack of rest. His once confident demeanor had crumbled, replaced by a haunted look that mirrored the house's own peculiar personality. But it was during a stormy night that the house unleashed its most spectacular display of defiance. As thunder rumbled and rain lashed against the windows, Mark was jolted awake by a cacophony of crashing and banging. He stumbled through the darkened corridors, his flashlight barely penetrating the gloom. What he discovered was a scene straight out of a horror movie. Furniture levitated, seemingly of its own volition, and household objects danced through the air. The walls vibrated with an otherworldly energy, and the very foundation of the house trembled. It was as if the house had awakened its dormant spirits to expel the intruder. Mark fled the house in terror, leaving behind his belongings and his illusions of conquest. As he stood in the pouring rain, drenched and defeated, the neighborhood watched in eerie silence. The house had made its final verdict, and Mark had been judged unworthy. In the aftermath of this supernatural spectacle, Mark decided he had had enough. He relinquished his claim to the family home, realizing that some forces were beyond human comprehension. The house, it seemed, had exacted its revenge in the most enigmatic and poetic manner. And so, friends, our family home returned to us, no longer tainted by Mark's presence. The neighborhood, our steadfast allies, rejoiced in silence, knowing that justice had been served. Mark, once a symbol of greed and betrayal, faded into obscurity. But the tale doesn't end here. Next, I'll share the ultimate twist in this saga, an unexpected discovery that shed light on Dad's true intentions and left us with a newfound appreciation for the eccentricities of our family home. Stay tuned for the grand finale. As the dust settled on Mark's hasty departure from our family home, we thought the tale had reached its conclusion. The house, having successfully defended itself against the invader, returned to its serene, if slightly quirky, state. The neighborhood, once rife with intrigue and espionage, resumed its usual rhythms, and life appeared to return to normal. But as fate would have it, the final act of this peculiar drama was still waiting in the wings. It was a revelation that would not only astonish us, but also provide closure to the enigmatic legacy our father had left behind. In the days following Mark's departure, I began the arduous task of sorting through the accumulated detritus he had left behind. It was a Herculean effort, as he had seemingly abandoned most of his possessions in his panicked flight from the house. Among the discarded items, I stumbled upon an old leather-bound journal, weathered by time and neglect. Curiosity piqued, I opened the journal to find the handwritten entries of our father, dating back several decades. It was a chronicle of his thoughts, dreams, and aspirations, a glimpse into the mind of a man who had always been somewhat of an enigma to us. As I read through the pages, a pattern began to emerge. Our father's writing spoke of his love for the family home, his fascination with its idiosyncrasies, and his deep connection to the neighborhood. It was clear that the house held a special place in his heart, and he had dedicated years to understanding its mysteries. But the most astonishing revelation came when I reached the final entries of the journal. In those pages, our father had detailed a plan that would ultimately lead to Mark's downfall and the house's triumphant defense. He had orchestrated the entire series of events, from the eccentric will to the house's rebellious antics. It was all part of his grand scheme to ensure that the family home remained untouched by those who did not truly appreciate its quirks. In his own words, he had written, "Only those who understand the heart of this house deserve to inherit it. I will test them as the house has tested me." It was a revelation that left me both astounded and moved. Our father had devised this elaborate ruse, not out of malice, but out of love for the house he had called home for so many years. He had used his eccentricity and flair for the dramatic to protect the place he held dear. And so, friends, the story comes to a close with a newfound appreciation for our father's legacy. The house, once a symbol of revenge, now stood as a testament to his love and ingenuity. Mark's brief tenure had inadvertently become a test of character, and he had failed spectacularly. As for us, we continued to live in the house, embracing its quirks and mysteries with open hearts. It was a daily reminder of our father's eccentricity and his deep affection for the place he had called home. The neighborhood, once divided by suspicion, had come together in a shared understanding of the house's unique magic. In the end, it was a tale of revenge turned redemption, of a house that defended itself, and of a father's enduring love. And as I write these final words, I can't help but smile, knowing that our family home will continue to enchant and confound generations to come. Thank you for joining me on this extraordinary journey, friends. And remember, sometimes the most unusual stories hold the deepest truths.
Shared his dilemma. "I need to take some time off work," he confessed, explaining how workplace stress and health issues were taking a toll on him. He worried about my mother-in-law's reaction. She was generally caring but prone to anxiety and could be overly critical. For instance, when he had previously taken a sick day, she had chastised him for not being more career-focused like his coworkers. My father-in-law had always been slender, but I noticed he had lost even more weight recently. Despite needing a break, he feared my mother-in-law's reaction to any mention of time off, especially since they depended on the extra income from his overtime hours. Reluctantly, he revealed that he had been sneaking out to see a doctor and now faced the necessity of a break from work. He was in a bind. "If I tell her, she might leave me," he confided, a hint of desperation in his voice. The thought pained me. My in-laws had welcomed me with open arms, regardless of my past in an orphanage, and I felt a strong desire to support them. "Okay, I'll send you money every month to cover your expenses," I offered, determined to help him through this rough patch. "I'm sorry you're going through this. Try to get better soon and return to work when you can." "Thank you so much," he replied, visibly relieved, but still burdened by the secret he had to keep. Following our conversation, he continued to pretend to go to work, maintaining the facade to avoid upsetting my mother-in-law. This secret added a complex layer to our family dynamics, but I was committed to supporting him during this challenging time. While I quietly transferred money to my father-in-law's bank account for his living expenses, my mother-in-law never bothered to check her bank statements closely, so she remained unaware of the transfers. He maintained the illusion of going to work daily, but instead, he sought solace and recovery in a mental health clinic and long walks in the serene mountains. Gradually, his health and spirits improved, and it seemed he might soon return to work. However, an unexpected turn of events shook our household dynamics. After a significant argument with her husband, my sister-in-law returned to her parents' home. "There's nothing like being back home," she declared with relief, venting about her strained marriage. "I thought I'd lose my mind staying with that foolish husband of mine. I'll be staying here for a while, so you'll need to cook for me too." From our first family gathering, it was clear she harbored resentment towards me. At her wedding, she grimaced throughout and later criticized my appearance to my face, suggesting her brother could have married someone more attractive. She also made hurtful remarks about my upbringing in an orphanage, openly calling it an embarrassment. Given that she had moved out after her marriage, I initially thought her presence wouldn't be a permanent issue in my life. Her sudden return, driven by marital troubles, seemed temporary. However, her stay extended, and her attitude grew increasingly bitter, particularly towards my father-in-law. Despite this, my mother-in-law had always treated me kindly, and I believed she would defend me against any harsh comments from my sister-in-law. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. One day, after returning from work, I sensed a shift in my mother-in-law's demeanor. She seemed distant and cold. Concerned, I approached her. "Is something bothering you?" I asked gently. Her response was chilling. "Did you know you've been talking about me behind my back?" she accused. I was stunned. "I've never spoken ill of you. You've always been kind, and I'm grateful. Why would I say bad things about you?" I responded, confused and hurt. She left the room abruptly, leaving me to face my smirking sister-in-law in the hallway. "Looks like you're not in her good books anymore. Did your true colors finally show? Being from an orphanage, your background does matter, huh? It's best not to gossip about people," she taunted. I defended myself, bewildered by the accusation. "Oh, the neighbors mentioned it when I came back. They said you've been speaking poorly of her all along," my sister-in-law claimed, adding a layer of mystery with her vague reference to unnamed neighbors. "I've never said any of those things." "Stop making things up," I protested, but my words fell on deaf ears. "Oh, how disrespectful, Mom. She's calling me a liar and being mean to me," my sister-in-law exclaimed, twisting my words as she retreated to my mother-in-law's room. Following this incident, my sister-in-law's behavior worsened. She fabricated complaints, claiming I mistreated her by making her sleep in the hallway and insisting she'd take the last turn for the bath since she was merely a guest. Each time she complained, I found myself explaining and defending my actions and words, trying to clear misunderstandings in a home that had once promised a new family and a fresh start. As time passed, it became evident that my mother-in-law was increasingly influenced by my sister-in-law's manipulative words. The situation grew more complicated when my sister-in-law prolonged her stay, and I couldn't help but wonder if she intended to make her visit permanent. This thought weighed heavily on me each day as I returned home from work, a place that once felt welcoming but now felt cold and silent. "I'm back," I announced softly upon entering the house, a stark contrast to the warm greetings I used to receive. The living room was quiet. "I'll start making dinner," I said, trying to keep the routine normal. To my surprise, as I walked into the dining area, I found my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law already eating sushi together. My sister-in-law smirked. "Oh, looks like someone who isn't family is here. You weren't planning on having sushi, were you?" My mother-in-law continued eating, her eyes glued to the television, ignoring my presence. "If you wanted sushi, you should have told me." "I came straight home from shopping," I replied, trying to hide my hurt. "No one mentioned they wanted that," my sister-in-law retorted, dismissing me completely. Then, turning to our parents, she cheerfully added, "Hey Mom, Dad, I went out with my friends today and brought back some delicious pudding. Let's eat together." They all indulged in the dessert, ignoring me entirely. Exhausted from work and the emotional strain, I retreated to my room, too weary to confront the blatant exclusion. The following day, my sister-in-law, preparing for another outing with friends, asked me to drive her to the station. "I can't. It's a weekday and I have work. Besides, we're not even going in the same direction, and you want to leave around noon," I explained, my patience wearing thin. "Just take the day off. It's fine. Your cute little sis-in-law just wants a ride. She hasn't had a chance to relax since she got married, right? Can't you be a bit nicer to her now?" she pleaded, trying to manipulate the situation. "With all due respect, didn't you go out with friends last night after getting a late call? It seems like you've been going out almost every day since you came back. I have work. Please take the bus or train," I countered, standing my ground as my mother-in-law and sister-in-law whispered to each other. I left for work, determined not to let the situation escalate further. However, the tipping point came that evening. Work had delayed me, and I arrived home late, soaked from the rain, groceries in hand, bracing for yet another cold reception. As expected, they were eating dinner without acknowledging me, continuing the pattern of the previous days. But what awaited me in the courtyard was far worse than any cold shoulder. In the middle of the garden, illuminated by the dim porch light, lay a pile of my belongings. My designer bag that I had bought with my first paycheck, shoes that were a birthday gift from my husband, and even my work computer, all drenched from the rain. My sister-in-law stood there smirking triumphantly. Having the stranger's things in the house grosses me out, so I threw them out. "Flaunting a designer bag like that, how arrogant of you," she sneered. Stunned, I turned to my mother-in-law and father-in-law. "Why didn't you stop her? Have I done something to make you believe her lies about me, bad-mouthing you and bullying her? Aren't you upset with her for what she did?" I pleaded for some sign of support. My mother-in-law avoided my gaze and remained silent, then finally muttered, "I can't talk to strangers. I can't be friendly with someone who's not family." Hurt and bewildered, I asked, "Where's my father-in-law?" He had been the one I supported during his time off, the only one who seemed to appreciate my efforts to blend into this family. As the silence stretched on, the harsh reality of my situation became painfully clear. I had been managing the finances in our household, a task I undertook out of gratitude for being welcomed into the family. But when conflict arose, I found myself longing for some support, especially from my father-in-law, whom I had financially supported during his time off. As the tensions escalated, I hoped he would stand by me. But when the moment came, he merely walked past without a word and retreated to his room. "That's it for me," I murmured to myself, feeling a mix of resignation and resolve. My sister-in-law, seizing the opportunity to twist the knife further, sneered, "Oh, are you upset?" "I'm sorry, not honestly. I never liked you from the start, coming from an institution and all. Just don't regret leaving. Good riddance." I retorted sharply. The decision was clear. It was time to leave. I quickly packed my belongings, aware that even though my father-in-law might worry about losing my financial support, he didn't make any move to stop me or defend me. His silence was the final straw. Driven by a need to escape the toxic environment, I didn't even discuss these issues with my husband before leaving. I suspected that my mother-in-law hadn't informed him of my sister-in-law's return or the ensuing conflicts. If he had known, surely he would have reached out, knowing the strained relations between us. But there had been no word from him on the matter, and a part of me feared that perhaps he too was influenced by his family's narrative. With a heavy heart, I got into my car and drove straight to my husband's new job location far away. All the while, doubts about his loyalty and our future together clouded my mind. Perhaps he sided with his family, I feared, and if so, could divorce be the only solution? Upon arriving at his apartment, he wasn't home yet, likely held up by end-of-month work. As I waited, the lights in the apartment signaled my arrival, and soon my husband walked in, surprised and delighted. "What, you're here? You should have told me you were coming. I would have come back sooner. What a pleasant surprise." His face lit up with a genuine smile, a stark contrast to the coldness I'd faced at his family's home. The mix of relief and humiliation overwhelmed me, and tears started to form. "What's wrong? Did I do something seriously? What's going on?" he asked, his concern palpable. Taking a deep breath, I began to explain everything. Told him about supporting his father during his medical leave, his sister's return and prolonged stay, her lies that turned his mother against me, and the cold treatment that escalated to my belongings being left out in the rain. Through tears and pauses, I laid bare the painful reality of my days with his family. After hearing everything, my husband was apologetic. He regretted being too wrapped up in work to notice the signs and deeply lamented his family's behavior towards me. He assured me that I wouldn't have to return to that house or interact with them if I chose not to. His response provided a sliver of hope that perhaps, with his support, we could navigate through this turmoil together. Despite the possibility of forgiveness someday, my husband was resolute about severing ties with his parents and sister. He also firmly declared that he would cease all financial support to his father. That night, I felt an immense burden lift from my shoulders. The stress I had been carrying dissolved, and I slept soundly beside him for the first time in ages. After leaving my in-laws' house, I never returned. Commuting to my husband's out-of-state location wasn't feasible, but fortunately, I had already arranged with my company to work remotely. My job didn't require constant office presence, and many of my colleagues were also working from home. Although I still needed to visit the office a few times each month, some of my colleagues lived even farther away, so remote work was a well-established practice. Living under the same roof as my in-laws and enduring my sister-in-law's antagonism had kept me from truly enjoying married life. Now, as we settled into our new routine, It felt like we were finally starting our lives as newlyweds. I was setting up my remote workstation when unexpectedly my sister-in-law reached out to me. It turned out that the day after I left was my father-in-law's payday, a day my mother-in-law typically managed by transferring a portion of his paycheck to their household account. This time, however, she was unable to do so, and only then discovered that I had been supporting them financially during his time off. "Hey, why didn't you tell me you were covering the living expenses?" she demanded over the phone. He asked me not to. He didn't want you to know, so I respected his wishes. I responded calmly. "We're running out of money for living expenses, and there's no one here to cook or do laundry. The place is a mess. As his wife, you need to come back and take care of these things, and send money quickly," she continued, her voice desperate. "How heartless," she exclaimed. "I've already told you I have no intention of going back to that house or being treated like your maid. Why should I help people who despise me, ruin my things, and treat me this way?" I replied, "Aren't you his wife?" "Without your help, we can't pay the bills or even shop," she continued, her voice desperate. "That's exactly why I'm saying it. I'm an outsider, so it's none of my business, right?" I reflected on her own words. I hung up the phone, ignoring her further complaints. Despite her and my mother-in-law's attempts to reach me with calls and messages, I stood firm in my decision. No longer would I allow myself to be drawn into their chaos or be manipulated by guilt. It was a liberating moment, affirming my resolve to start anew with my husband, free from the toxic ties that had once bound us. Despite the persistent calls from my in-laws, I chose to ignore them completely. However, when my husband returned from work and finally answered the phone, he addressed them with unwavering firmness. "I will never forgive how you treated her. I'm not sending her back to you, and I'm not coming back either. I don't see you as my family anymore. Leave my wife alone, or you'll regret it," he declared. Considering how much my sister-in-law idolized her brother and my mother-in-law's dependency on him, this declaration must have come as a shock to them. A few days later, my father-in-law called, his voice laden with desperation. He explained how difficult life had become living with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and begged me to resume the financial help. Although they had welcomed me into the family despite my orphanage background, their lack of support when I needed it most made me realize I owed them nothing. "I will never assist you again," I told him firmly and ended the call. Subsequently, in an act of sheer desperation, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law shamelessly showed up at my workplace, knowing their potential for creating disturbances. I had already briefed my company about the situation, and security was alerted immediately. They caused a scene, demanding that the company force me to send money back home. When my husband found out, he was incensed and advised me to report them to the police. My colleagues were incredibly supportive, encouraging me to focus on my work and my life with my husband, far removed from the toxic environment of my in-laws. The stress took its toll on my father-in-law, whose health declined significantly due to the pressure exerted by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Eventually, he had no choice but to quit his job. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law attempted to return to her husband's family, but he refused to take her back. The town quickly caught wind of her dramatic antics at my workplace, exacerbating her already troubled marriage, which promptly led to their decision to divorce. Without any support, my in-laws and sister-in-law moved to a modest apartment and started working part-time jobs to make ends meet. As for my husband and me, we were finally enjoying peaceful, fulfilling days together. Our home became a sanctuary of love and support, far from the strife we had endured. Recently, we received joyous news. We are expecting a child. The anticipation of meeting our baby fills us with happiness. We are eagerly awaiting this new addition to our family, cherishing every moment of this special time together.
Hello, beautiful people. My name is Autumn, and I'm a widow. Trust me, I never thought I would lose my husband Victor so fast. But God had other plans. I couldn't do anything to stop it. Victor had cancer, and his prognosis was not good. We discovered it pretty late. By then, his chances of making it through the treatment were low. We tried our best but couldn't save him. I still miss him like hell. Victor and I met through a work event. I was attending a party on behalf of my company when I met Victor. He was a rising entrepreneur and wanted my input on some work stuff. My boss and he were good friends, so I got the chance to get to know Victor better. Well, long story short, we realized that we were perfect for each other. Soon we were dating and managed to be in a serious relationship. Back then, Victor was fresh out of a divorce, so he had a big problem with trusting others. One day, he sat me down and told me what had happened with his ex-wife Carolina and his daughter Anna. He said, "I'm sure you have heard something about my divorce from others. You see, my ex-wife cheated on me. We had been together since high school. I had no idea she would do that to me. Staying with her was out of the question, so I left. Anna was full when it happened. I'm so sorry to hear that, Victor. I wish she didn't hurt you like that," I replied. "It was inevitable, Autumn. I guess I was stupid enough to marry her. She did have a lot of red flags. I was working a low-paying job, and she was emotionally abusing me for being a failure. She never wanted to work, so I was stuck paying for her too," Victor explained. "She had no right to emotionally abuse you for something like this. Why didn't you leave?" "You deserve so much better," I said. I was about to leave. I had already told her that I wanted a break. A week later, she said she was pregnant. I thought I should marry her and give my child a wholesome life. I was ready to stay in the marriage for Anna, but the cheating did it for me," Victor confessed. Carolina was unapologetic about it. She thought he would never leave her, but Victor did divorce her. Carolina still wasn't done with him, Victor continued. "I tried to get custody of Anna back then, but the judge didn't allow it. I tried my best, you know, but I was stuck in a bad job and didn't have much money for a good lawyer. I had to give Carolina alimony and child support. I did it for my kid. But I later learned that Carolina was spending the entire month herself. By the end of the month, she was back asking for more," Victor said with frustration. "Oh my God, poor Anna. How could she do this to her child?" I exclaimed. "You don't know her, Autumn. Carolina is a vile woman. When Anna was 10, she told me that Carolina was never spending much money on her. Hell, I discovered this when she called me begging for school supplies. At that point, I knew I had to be better for my child. That's why I started this business," Victor revealed. Yes, Victor did everything for Anna. He worked hard and set up his business so that Anna could have a better life. After becoming successful in his work, Victor was able to file for custody. However, the custody was split 50-50, and Victor still had to pay lots of child support for Anna. He knew that if the payment stopped, Anna would face the consequences, so he never protested. Over the years that I dated Victor, Carolina's character became pretty clear to me. Anna grew very close to me, while her mother couldn't even stand the sight of me. When Victor and I got engaged, we had to invite her to the engagement party out of courtesy. She made a huge scene when she came. She simply walked up to me and said, "Don't think you've won just because you're marrying Victor. If you hadn't come into his life, Victor would be back with me. You are a home wrecker and don't have shame breaking up a family. You are the home wrecker, Carolina. Don't act like you didn't cheat on Victor. You mean nothing to him now," I retorted. If you think that, you are wrong. I am the mother of his child. I can still take half of his assets for Anna. You won't be the only one enjoying his money. I can assure you that, Carolina threatened. Yes, this woman was delusional. I didn't know why she used her daughter to extract money from Victor. Anna was a sweet child and didn't deserve such a vile mother. From my conversations with Anna, I could tell that she didn't like her mother as much. I wasn't surprised, since Anna was used as a puppet by her mom. I hated Carolina for what she had done to Victor and Anna. However, the entitled woman was not done surprising me. Carolina was so controlling that she kept Anna from seeing her father. She would constantly demand money from Victor in the guise of meeting Anna's needs. Victor didn't want to conflict, and we gave Carolina the money to keep her from abusing Anna. I could tell that Carolina had planned everything out very carefully. However, her future would not be very bright. I made sure of it when I discovered her true intentions. Victor was diagnosed with cancer just 3 years after we got married. It was a painful time for the entire family. There was only one person who didn't give a damn about Victor, and it was Carolina. She was busy asking Victor for information on Anna's inheritance. She believed that as Anna's mother, she should get half of his inheritance. Yes, that's exactly what she wanted from Victor when he was dying. She said, "I want to know everything about what you are leaving to Anna, since I'll be managing her estate on her behalf. I need to know everything." Will you stop talking about inheritance? Victor is still pretty much alive. How insensitive can you be? Look, this is not about you. I have Anna's best interests and want to make sure Victor doesn't leave you everything. I'm here for my child who he fathered. You are here for yourself, Carolina. You do have to pretend otherwise. Don't worry. I will leave half of my inheritance to Anna. What Victor never told her was that he had his plan for Anna. I later learned from his lawyer that he made me the manager of Anna's estate until she turned 21. After that, she would have full control over her share. This man thought about everything, even when he was dying. His top priority was his family. And that is why I know I will never find someone like him again. It crushes me to think he is no more. Before he died, Victor told me a secret. He said, "When I am gone, I want you to go into my study and find a secret box. The key will be near it. I have left you a letter inside. I want you to read it as soon as possible. Let's not talk about this now, Victor. I don't want to think about losing you. I know this is hard, Autumn, but Carolina will try to benefit from my death. I don't want that. The letter will help you and Anna get to your just inheritance. Promise me you will read it and do the necessity. I will rest at ease if you do. I promise, Victor. Don't worry. I will take care of Anna. She is like my own." After Victor's passing, I was determined to keep my promise. So, even with my heavy heart, I managed to find the letter. When I read it, my world shifted on its axis immediately. I knew why Victor wanted me to reach the letter as soon as possible. With all the information I got in the letter, I was ready to ruin Carolina. However, I knew I had to wait. I didn't have to wait long. That greedy woman, Carolina, didn't even give me time to grieve. I had invited her to Victor's funeral as a courtesy and because of Anna. I was almost certain that she would not care about Victor's funeral and that she would only show up during the reading of the will. However, Carolina did show up to the funeral, but she was not there to pay her condolences or grieve for her ex-husband. She wanted something else. Even before the funeral was done, Carolina walked up to me right in the middle of the crowded funeral home. She said, "So now that everything is done with, it's time you give me half of Victor's assets. Be quick about it. I don't have all the time in the world. I have places to be." "Excuse me? Have you no shame, woman? The funeral isn't even over yet. And what the hell are you even talking about? Why should I hand over half of Victor's assets to you?" "Well, I am Anna's mother, so I should get her share of the inheritance. Victor promised me half of his property before he died, so you better hurry up and give it to me. Those assets belong to Anna and not you. Why in the world would I give you anything? Because I am Anna's mother. Don't try to be smart, Autumn. You cannot cheat me out of my share." "Mom, stop it. Dad's funeral isn't even over yet. Have some respect for his memory. Why are you doing this?" "Don't tell me what to do, Anna. This woman is going to cheat you out of your fair share and mine. I'm here to make sure I get half of Victor's assets, that I can safely keep them for you, Autumn. You need to hand over the paperwork for my shares. My time is precious." "Carolina, you have no shame. You have some nerve walking up to me and demanding my late husband's assets. You are just an ex-wife and don't deserve anything. I might be an ex-wife. I'm still the mother of his child. Technically, you are the one who shouldn't get anything since he never had children with you. Give me my share now, Autumn. Only Anna deserves to have half of Victor's shares, Carolina. Why should I give it to you? I am her mother, and she is a minor. Naturally, I will take over her inheritance and manage it, so they are my assets now. Now get working before I call a lawyer and sue you." By then, I was fuming. Everyone around me looked extremely uncomfortable. They were even eyeing Carolina skeptically. Poor Anna was still crying and didn't have the energy to stop her mom, so I took matters into my own hands. It was time, and I knew it. So I said, "Since you already made a spectacle of Victor's funeral, I have no intention of saving your face. Everyone already knows exactly what type of woman you are. But this time, I will make things even clearer for everyone." "What do you mean? Don't you dare go making up lies about me. I won't tolerate it." "There are no lies, Carolina. Victor left me a letter before he died. It contained a lot of information about you, along with proof. Why don't I just read it to everyone? Then we can all decide if you deserve his property." "All right, go ahead. I have nothing to be scared of. Your empty threats won't keep me from my and Anna's inheritance." So I took out a huge envelope from my bag. It did contain everything that I needed to destroy Carolina. To be honest, I didn't have the heart to hurt and humiliate Anna, but I took her permission beforehand, so she was prepared for what I was about to do. In front of everyone, I opened the letter and started to read. "Dear Autumn, if you have found this letter, I have already passed away. I don't know if this letter will come as a consolation or become another bad memory of my passing. All I know is that you are hurt and need some support right now. To be honest, I almost didn't write this letter. Something about letting sleeping dogs lie. But I know Carolina will become a problem for you once I am gone. I wish I could help you right now, but this letter is all I can give. Carolina had been my first love. I thought I would spend the rest of my life with her. Maybe it was my fault that I trusted her. Maybe it was her fault for breaking my trust. You know why my marriage broke down. Everyone knows me. They know exactly how her cheating affected me. There was one thing that people never knew. Hell, even I didn't know until a few years ago. I took a paternity test on Anna, my daughter who takes her rightful place in my heart, along with you. It broke me, Autumn. She is not my own. I had no idea. It doesn't change anything, though. She is still very much mine. Nothing will ever change that. Anna is my daughter, but somewhere deep inside my heart, I am broken. Carolina tricked me into believing Anna is mine. I never would have suspected otherwise. I didn't know she cheated on me for way longer. Now I have the truth. Carolina will use Anna to get my property. I know that if Anna was an adult, maybe I wouldn't have bothered telling anyone. But Anna is still a child. I don't want Carolina to use her to get my property. Everything only belongs to you and Anna. If you read my will, you will see that I have assigned you to take care of my assets before passing them on to Anna. You might be wondering why I did that, so I decided to help you out a bit. I even put the DNA test results in this letter. I know I can trust you with everything. Even Anna trusts you more than Carolina. I hope you take care of her when I am gone. I stopped reading because the next parts were too sentimental and personal for me to share. Victor did love me with all his heart. He hoped that I knew that. He also left me the letters that I can deal with Caroline and give her just what she deserves. When I was reading the letter, I heard gasps. Carolina was shaking and her eyes went wide. She was mumbling something and trying to clutch her heart. Anna just sat there crying silently. Everyone else was also in utter shock. When I stopped reading, Anna said, "You are one vile and dishonest woman, Mom. How could you do this? Do you have no shame? Listen to me. I did everything for you. I wanted you to have a good father. I simply wanted the best for you. Autumn is twisting the truth. It doesn't matter who you are. Victor said he is your father." Stop it, Carolina. Don't go around blaming your cheap character on me. I should have known her biological father as well. You had no right to lie to Victor and Anna, you witch. You can't just insult me like this. It doesn't matter if Anna is not Victor's child. She's still entitled to his property, and I have the right to take over his assets as Anna's mother. No, you will never place a finger on Dad's assets. You used me all my life to get money out of Dad. He looked after me even knowing I'm not his child. Hell, even Autumn treated me better than you, and she is just a stepmother. You did not do this for me. You did this for yourself. Anna, listen to me. You are misunderstanding me. This witch is turning you against me. She'll never give you Victor's assets. You need to see that she is playing you. Carolina kept begging Anna to listen to her. On the other hand, Anna kept crying and screaming at her mother. I felt bad for the child. First, her mom makes a scene at her dad's funeral. Then she tries to brainwash her into signing away her property. It was a show. Everyone in the room was disgusted with Carolina. Some even started to shame her and berate her. When Carolina saw that she was cornered, she started to verbally attack Anna. She said, "You ungrateful child. I should have gotten rid of you all these years. I raised you, and now you decide to betray me. I deserve half of Victor's property. You are just a minor. I'll get everything, whether you like it or not." Think you missed something from the letter, Carolina. Since the estate lawyer is already here, he will tell you how I am supposed to take care of Anna's assets until she is 21. Till Anna turns 18, you will only get the child support payments that you usually do, so she won't get to spend another penny from Dad. I'll move in with you, Autumn. Will you let me stay with you? I'm only a few months away from turning 18. Of course, Anna. You can stay with me as long as you need. This is your father's house, so it's yours as well. I'll do what's necessary to make it happen. How dare you, Anna, Autumn. I won't let you steal my child and my inheritance. I will sue you. You won't get away with this. I'll get my child support payments and the assets. By then, I had enough of her behavior. I was mentally drained, and so was Anna. It hurt to look at the poor child. Everyone noticed, and before I could do it myself, they took the liberty to kick her out. What broke me was that Carolina didn't even try to coax Anna into going home. All she cared about was the money and assets. But at the same time, Anna held on to me and refused to let go. She no longer wanted to be with her mother. As the days passed, me and Anna went up in arms against Carolina. Since Anna was living with me, her mom did not receive any payments for child support. Carolina called and texted. She also had the courtesy to leave some colorful voicemails, calling me and Anna names. I saved them all and threatened to show them to the police if she tried anything. Anna was already going through a lot, and I wanted to protect her, so I decided not to let Carolina near her again. Anna settled in just fine with me. We talked about the estate divisions with the lawyer and planned out a payment scheme for Anna's needs. She said that she trusted me and would be fine with whatever I do with her share. Trust me, guys, I was almost in tears seeing just how much this little girl held on to me. I promised myself that I would always fight for her and take care of her. Adult adoption is in the air, but we are taking some time to grieve Victor first. I've enrolled us both in therapy to cope better with what happened. Anna seems much better than before, and even her friends have told me so. Carolina is not doing that well. Her grand scheme of enjoying Victor's property and money went up in flames. She was desperate for money since Carolina didn't have any job. Hell, she didn't have a cent to her name because she spent it all on her luxurious life. I guess she was counting on the inheritance to sustain herself. Well, sadly, with Anna disowning her, she had no way to fulfill her plans. Currently, she is begging me and Victor's family for money. Be assured that no one has and never will help her out again. Even Anna has told me not to let them meet ever again. Me and Anna have already started our healing journey, and I hope you guys will pray for us and wish us well.
You really have the nerve to show up with that face, huh? A former classmate is being ridiculed. Seeing her remaining silent and about to cry, I felt a surge of anger. Cut it out, will you? I'd immediately stepped in to defend my former classmate. When she looked up to face me, my heart skipped a beat. What's the matter? A farmer from the countryside trying to act cool or something. Now it was my turn to be mocked for being a farmer. She hasn't grown up a bit since high school. Thinking that, I smiled and patted my former classmate on the shoulder. Do you know who she really is? Right after, the tables turned dramatically due to the actions of my former classmate. I am Matthew Smith, a single man running a farm in a regional city. Our family has a long history of farming dating back to my great-grandfather's generation. Thus, we're quite large-scale and have a fair number of employees. Matthew, it's time to go harvest. Got it. Having helped with the family farming business since I was young, I've always taken pride in being a farmer. After graduating high school, I chose not to go to college and instead helped with the family business. Farming is complex. Listen, Matthew, farming is a battle against many elements. If you let your guard down even a little, you won't get good vegetables. The more effort we put in, the more the vegetables will respond. I was repeatedly taught the essence of farming by my grandparents and parents. Subject to the whims of weather and climate, any negligence would prevent the crops from growing well. It's a tough job, but it's genuinely rewarding to produce delicious vegetables. I want to incorporate various technologies for my generation. Our field is yours to do as you please now. That's right. Do it your way. I've put effort into modern agriculture, venturing into rare and challenging to grow vegetables. Thanks to this, Our family is well known in the area. Matthew, someone came looking for that new vegetable you've been growing. Thank you, Michael. The person who called out to me is Michael Jones. He's one of the key supporters of our farm along with his wife. His wife is currently pregnant and on maternity leave. However, she sometimes shows up to help out without overexerting herself, for which I'm truly grateful. Well, I'm going to check on the veggies. Yes, please do. He's knowledgeable about rare vegetables and supports my ideas, helping to grow them together. That's why I can trust him with the work confidently. Matthew, I'll head to the field with the interns first. Thanks, I appreciate it. The next person to speak to me was Jacob Miller. He just graduated from college and started working in our fields. He is multilingual and has been leading the foreign agricultural training program we recently introduced. His kind nature has made him popular among the interns. All right, time for me to get to work too. With the help of many, I've been making delicious vegetables. I've been spending each day taking care of my vegetables when... Matthew, you've got a letter. Thanks. The letter was to inform me about a high school reunion. It seems that they are organizing a reunion for my grade from our high school. The venue this time is in New York. Usually, it would be held in our hometown, but many classmates had moved to New York for college and ended up working there. So it looks like it's going to be held in New York this time. I wonder if I'll see her in New York. The person that comes to mind is someone special to me, a classmate named Emily Williams. Maybe I'll get to see her since she had gone to New York. With that thought, I decided to make arrangements to attend. Emily, I need your help again today. Emily was known to be beautiful back in high school. However, she always looked down because of a large scar on her face. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. You're always such a big help, Matthew. You're always busy helping out at home, aren't you? I was interested in her. Emily was smart, so I made up the excuse of wanting her to check my homework to talk to her, and eventually, we became friends. You really have a way of teaching, Emily. Thank you. You're kind, Matthew. You think so? I think you're the kind one. The reason I started to take an interest in Emily was because of the presence of other classmates like Sarah Brown and her group. Matthew's family is a bunch of farmers. That's probably why he smells like soil. He's probably covered in mud every day. Because of my family farm, I was always ridiculed by Sarah and her flashy, popular group. To them, I would retort, "So what if we're farmers? It's because of farmers that you get to eat vegetables. Have you done anything significant enough to mock others?" I took pride in our farm, so I always fought back. Sarah and her group would laugh it off, saying, "It's just the truth." I suppose they found my constant comebacks somewhat annoying. Eventually, we became like cats and dogs. Interestingly, it was only them who ridiculed me. Other classmates didn't mock me. Sarah is annoying you again, huh? They're annoying, always bragging or putting others down. In fact, they distanced themselves from Sarah's group. Emily, you know, with that scar on your face, I'm surprised you can come to school. If it were me, I'd be too embarrassed to show my face. They also ridiculed Emily for her appearance. Emily responded differently from me towards them. She just silently endured it, being a woman and having such a scar. Emily, there's something I don't understand of the homework. Could you help me? I just couldn't leave her alone, so I started talking to Emily and made sure I was there for her. In doing so, I was able to protect her from Sarah and her group, albeit slightly. What are you going to do after high school, Matthew? I'm not going to college. I plan to focus on farming. I have various things I want to do, and while my grandparents are still healthy, I want to get their opinions. What about you, Emily? I'm planning to go to a university in New York. Since then, I haven't seen Emily, who went off to university in New York. However, I occasionally heard rumors about her. Emily is working hard, so I should too. Every time I hear about her, It inspires me to do my best. Emily's existence supports me even to this day. I would really like to see her. She must have become more mature and even more beautiful than before. Maybe she doesn't remember much about me. Still, I wanted to see Emily as she is now. Deciding to attend the reunion, I told my parents I'd be away from home for a while. Is that so? We'll be looking forward to the souvenir. And maybe you'll find a potential wife while you're at it. What are you talking about, Dad? As I retorted to my dad's words, Emily was still crossing my mind. I never really had a girlfriend through high school, and I hadn't met anyone special since graduating. To me, Emily was still a significant figure, perhaps even idealized in my memory. That's why I wanted to see her again. Typical New York with so many tall buildings. Arriving in New York, I was immediately overwhelmed by the sheer number and height of the buildings, but that feeling was short-lived. It feels so fresh here. I'm glad I came. My excitement rose quickly in the city, which I hadn't visited for a long time. I spent the day dropping off my luggage at the hotel I had booked in advance and wandering around, buying unique city-only souvenirs. After thoroughly enjoying myself, I decided to rest early to prepare for the reunion the next day. So, this is the venue for the reunion. New York hotels are indeed stylish. The reunion was held in a hotel banquet hall. Stepping in with a bit of nervous excitement, I started to see familiar faces. Hey, it's Matthew. Wow, it's really you. It's been so long. Long time no see, you guys. My friends quickly recognized me and greeted me warmly. In response, I smiled back at them. We slapped each other's shoulders as we used to. Well, it's been such a long time, and still that awful scar. Then, from the back, we heard an unnecessarily loud voice. Turning our gaze, we saw a group dressed in flashy attire. Ah, that's Sarah and her crew, unchanged in the worst way. They've been bringing up something, but now it seems they'd found someone to bother. It appears Sarah was among them. Our friends looked on with annoyance. Feeling uneasy, I approached the group, and it seemed they were causing a commotion. Really, how persistent can you be? That was Sarah, laughing and pressing against someone. It was Emily. Are you even listening? I'm talking to you. You hadn't changed at all. And to think you'd show up looking like that. Emily, just like in high school, was looking down, alone, holding back tears. Even at this age, they're still bullying like high schoolers. Feeling that surge of anger, I raced over to them. Cut it out, will you? As I did, I shielded Emily behind me. Wait, is that you, Matthew? Emily said, surprised, looking up at me. Seeing her like that, I couldn't help but feel a jolt of emotion. It's been a while, I managed to say, finding myself at a loss for words in front of her, who had become even more beautiful than she was back in high school. The scar was still there, yes, but it was hardly noticeable, maybe because of her makeup. Even though I had stepped in to protect her, I found myself frozen, overcome by nervousness. What's this? The country farmer thinks he's some kind of hero. That mocking tone from Sarah was what finally got me going. Looking at her, I retorted, I've always said, what's wrong with farming? You all eat vegetables, don't you? I shifted my focus from Emily and coldly retorted, I objected coldly. These people really haven't changed. Looking at Sarah with a mix of astonishment and disdain, I thought about how childish it was of her to still engage in such petty harassment. At that moment, something occurred to me. Does Sarah even know about Emily's current situation? Is she aware and still choosing to harass her this way? No, that can't be. If she knew, she wouldn't be acting like this. Thinking this, I couldn't help but smile at the thought of what's about to unfold because of Sarah's actions. What are you smiling about? Do you know who she really is? I said this while putting my arm around Emily's shoulder, facing Sarah. Sarah looked puzzled at first, but her expression quickly shifted back to one of disdain. Huh. What can she possibly be with that face? Let me guess, some low-level worker at some company, right? Even if she got the job out of pity because of her scar, it's nothing to brag about. She continued to look down on us. So you really don't know anything, huh? My smile widened. You see, she's a CEO. She's far more successful than you could ever hope to be. A CEO? No way. I can't believe it. Sarah scoffed at my words. Apparently, she doesn't listen to my words. Thank you, Matthew. Emily then stepped forward and pulled out a business card, offering it to Sarah. I apologize for the late introduction. I'm Emily Williams, the CEO of my company. The business card displayed her title as CEO and her name, Emily Williams. Do you ever talk back, Emily? Me having a scar is true after all, she said. Back in high school, Emily was always self-conscious about the scar on her face and tended to keep to herself. Sarah and her group often mocked her for that scar, and I was always concerned about it. I don't think it's something you should care so much about. I tried to reassure her, making an effort to engage her in conversation. That's how we started talking more, just the two of us. I can feel confident about myself because of this scar, Emily told me one day. At her words, I couldn't help but tilt my head in confusion. Is having a scar really that bad? Huh. She responded, her eyes widening in surprise at my question. I've always wondered something while farming. Hey, why can't this be shipped? It's because it has a scar, was the answer. Scarred vegetables can't be shipped out. If they aren't perfect and unblemished, the agricultural cooperative won't accept them. Similarly, vegetables that don't meet the standard criteria are also rejected. But these taste just as good. In reality, the flavor of pretty vegetables, scarred vegetables, and non-standard vegetables is equally delicious. In fact, some scarred vegetables taste even better. I understand what you're saying, Matthew. My grandmother used to say vegetables with scars often become tastier, as if making up for their flaws, she would explain, always cooking the unsellable vegetables for us at home. I shared this with Emily. Whether you have a scar or not doesn't change who you are. It's all about what's inside that counts. Having scars means you've experienced pain, and that can make you grow into a better person. I encouraged Emily. Hearing my words seemed to lift the weight off her shoulders, and from that day on, she no longer hung her head. Sometime later, I heard the story behind this scar from my mom. Emily shared with me quietly. It turned out she was attacked by a neighbor's dog when she was just a child. A large dog had escaped and went after Emily while she was out with her family. Her pregnant mother was there, and Emily, even as a child, had tried to protect her mother and the unborn sibling. My dad was a bit further away, but managed to chase the dog off quickly, so fortunately, it didn't get worse, she explained. So it's like a medal of honor then, I responded. Yes, it's my medal for protecting my mom and sibling. I'm not ashamed of it anymore, she said with the most beautiful smile I had ever seen. After that, Emily became even more dedicated to her studies. Matthew, I got accepted into a university in New York, Emily shared with me one day. That's amazing. I knew you could do it, Emily. She continued to maintain top grades in her class and entered the famous university. In college, she studied business administration and, after graduating, started her own company. Her business model involved buying unsellable fruits and vegetables directly from farmers and selling them directly to customers. Currently, she sells primarily in the metropolitan area, sourcing from nearby regions. Most of her customers are from the city, but the freshness, taste, and the lower prices due to the products being damaged or non-standard have also made her online sales popular. Thanks to that, I'm gradually gaining fans nationwide, Emily said, her demeanor much more confident than before. Seeing her like this made me feel a bit proud. I had known about Emily's company through our connection in agriculture and had been cheering for her from afar. I had been looking forward to seeing her after so long, but I couldn't stand by and watch Sarah mock her like in the old days. "I'm sorry, Emily, for spilling the beans about your work. I just couldn't keep quiet," I apologized. "It's okay. Thank you. Actually, your defense helped me find the courage to stand up for myself." After impulsively revealing Emily's profession, I felt a bit of regret. However, she no longer had the tearful look from before. She was looking forward, her eyes full of determination. "Actually, I buy vegetables from here too," Sarah murmured in shock after looking at the business card Emily had given her. Her entourage leaned in to take a peek at the card and then exclaimed in surprise, recognizing the company name. "Oh, that company. Well, it's well known, isn't it?" It seemed our classmates were familiar with the company too, and they began to make a fuss over Emily. She smiled back at them, standing firm and looking straight ahead. "Thank you for your patronage," she said. At those words, Sarah turned pale and was at a loss for words. Her followers, feeling awkward, started to drift away from her. "I'll be taking my leave now." Unable to bear the stares from those around her, Sarah eventually left the venue. As Sarah left, our classmates started to applaud Emily, who gave a slightly embarrassed but lovely smile. "You've become quite the celebrity," I noted as a crowd gathered around Emily, making it impossible for me to get close. I smiled bitterly and watched the scene from a distance. Emily is now talked to by everyone, unlike back then. Feeling a mix of happiness and a bit of loneliness, Emily broke away from the group and came over to me. "Thanks for helping me out there," she said with shy gratitude, looking as beautiful as ever. "Don't mention it. But should you be talking to me? Everyone seems to want to talk to you." "It's fine. I want to talk to you," she insisted, making me fight back a grin of happiness. "Because of you, I don't worry about my scar anymore," Emily said, gently touching her scar. But when Sarah started mocking me, I couldn't help but freeze up, remembering the past. "Because you helped me, just like in high school, I was able to stand up to her." I was really happy. "My help?" I asked, surprised by her words. Emily smiled. "Vegetables with scars taste better, right?" I decided to compete based on what's inside, which motivated me to study hard, and thanks to that, I became a CEO. I was captivated by her smiling face. I never imagined my words would change Emily's mindset. "Thank you, Matthew," she said, making me feel unexpectedly pleased. "Oh, Matthew, actually, I have something work-related to discuss. Could we meet later?" So we agreed to meet after the reunion. I was planning to return to my hometown the next afternoon, so we met in the morning at a cafe she had chosen. "I want to make a contract with your farm," she revealed. She offered me a deal. "We've only been dealing with farms in the capital area so far, but we're planning to expand nationwide. So please let us handle your vegetables too." Emily bowed her head to me, expressing her gratitude. "Well, I thought it wasn't necessary to go that far." I nodded with a smile. "I'm looking forward to working together." "Me too. I'm looking forward to our partnership." I gladly accepted her request, and Emily and I became business partners. "I fulfilled a dream," she chuckled. "Ha. I've always dreamed of handling your farm's vegetables," she mentioned. The idea to start her business was inspired by me. After tasting our vegetables, she was determined to include them in her business. "But your vegetables are so well known, Al. I thought it would be disrespectful to approach you with my small startup. That's why I worked hard to grow my company to a level you'd hear about." Her dedication impressed me, and to think she valued our vegetables that much. "I'm glad to hear you say that. It's beneficial for us too, not having to discard good vegetables, and it's great that more people get to enjoy them. Yes, I'd want everyone to taste the vegetables from your farm." After returning home, I quickly told Michael about signing a contract with Emily's company. "That's amazing. Her company was even featured on TV the other day," he responded, clearly pleased. This reassurance made me feel confident about the decision to partner with her. Matthew, there's something else I need to discuss, even though it might overlap with the contract topic. Michael then brought up a new subject. It turns out a local school had approached us about the possibility of hosting some experiential learning sessions. Jacob was particularly excited about this opportunity. How do you feel about Jacob handling this, Michael? I asked. I think he's more than capable, he replied, offering a supportive smile that felt like a nudge in the right direction. Let's leave the school matter to Jacob then. Michael, could you support him in this? Of course, he agreed. Looks like we're going to be busy, I said to Michael, feeling genuinely excited about what lay ahead. After some time passed, Emily, you came to visit again today. Emily frequently visited our farm, combining her visits with trips back home. It seems quite lively today. Actually, today we have kids from the local school here for a field trip. That's wonderful, she said, turning her gaze towards the field. There, the neighborhood children were harvesting vegetables with bright, sparkling eyes. It was heartwarming watching them interact with Jacob and the interns with smiles. This farm is special. The vegetables here bring smiles to many people. I always feel like I want to stay here forever. Hearing those words, I couldn't help but look at Emily's face. As we've seen each other more and more, our relationship has grown closer, and now, perhaps it's the right time to express my feelings to her. Emily, would you go out with me? I asked her. This time she looked at me and said, I have a scar on my face. To me, that doesn't matter at all. Even with a scar on your face, your heart is beautiful, I reassured her. Hearing my words, she nodded with a radiant smile, and so we began dating and eventually decided to get married. What about your job in New York? I inquired. We're in the age of remote work now, she replied. She married into my family and continued her role as a CEO from our home. Is work going okay? I asked. Yes, no problem at all. In fact, I did more here in this quiet environment than I did in New York, she assured me. My parents welcomed Emily warmly. We're so happy to have a beauty like you join our family, they said. Really? We were worried Matthew might never get married, but we're truly grateful that someone as beautiful as you has married him. No one dared to mention the scar on her face. It seemed that everyone appreciated her for who she was, not her appearance. With my face, the scar doesn't matter at all. Matthew fell in love with you for who you are. You must be an incredible person, my grandmother told her. She and Emily had become very close, often seen chatting together. Everyone here is just like you, wonderful people. Exactly. Everyone knows that even if they have scars, it's what's inside that counts, I said, and Emily smiled brightly in response. We were blessed by many at our wedding. We invited all our classmates except for one person, Sarah, of course. I heard a rumor that Sarah got divorced. Apparently, Sarah had married a wealthy man and bragged about it, but her husband's company had dealings with Emily's company. Through that connection, he found out about the situation, leading to a big fight and their divorce. It seems they had a child, but the husband took custody. Sarah used her child as a trophy but lacked affection for that child. Thus, even her child grew distant, leaving her to lead a lonely life now. I heard she's desperately trying to earn child support. Apparently, Sarah spends her days working various jobs, insisting she do anything but farming. That's unfortunate. I'd consider hiring her if she genuinely humbled herself, but that's unlikely with her pride. It also seems that her former friends tried to fit in elsewhere, but faced rejection. Well, she reaped what she sowed. She should have cultivated her inner self instead of mocking others' appearances. I muttered, choosing to focus on my wedding. Matthew, is there anything I can help with? I'd love your help, but what about your work? It's fine. I've just finished a task, and I could use physical activity as a break. Emily helps out with the farming in between her work. Thanks to her, we've significantly reduced waste in our produce. As a result, our income has been steadily increasing. Also, thanks to her, my unique vegetables can now reach customers nationwide. By the way, Michael's wife said she wanted to thank you. Thank me. She said her child loved the weaning food she made with the vegetables you grew. Emily beamed happily at my words. Michael's child was born healthy and is now happily keeping Michael and his wife busy. We should hang out with them again soon. Sure, we should. Jacob has gained confidence from leading the recent field trip and has become more proactive. He's currently abroad, sharing agricultural knowledge in the intern's home countries. We can't be outdone by them. Today, we're both out in the field, sweating under the sun. A year later, we were blessed with a lovely son. Now the three of us spend our days in the field. I wonder if he'll want to farm like us one day. Who knows? He might even say he wants to be a CEO someday. We discussed our child's future with smiles on our faces, looking forward to what lies ahead. However, we're determined to teach him to value people's inner qualities over their appearances. Our farm is a place where people of all races come together. We want him to be exposed to such diversity and learn to see the worth in everyone. With that thought, I gently stroked Aaron's head.